There's a simple blueprint every boy band must follow. Charisma, a style, a strong lead voice or a collection of good ones, and a look that sets them apart. In 1996, Dru Hill came on the scene with all that. They combined raw, powerful harmonies with high-energy performances, immediately drawing in fans. With their gritty, gospel-infused vocals and bold style, Dru Hill quickly established themselves as one of the most influential male groups of the 90s, even if only for just a moment. This is their story.
And the winner is Dru Hill. Dru Hill. Dru Hill.
Let's rewind to 1992. Bill Clinton was on his way to becoming the 42nd president. Criss Cross had everyone wearing their clothes backward, and Michael Jackson mesmerized the world with his groundbreaking 9-minute video for Remember the Time. During this pivotal moment in pop culture, a young Tamir Ruffin was laying the foundation for his chapter in R&B history. Tamir's musical roots ran deep. His uncle was associates with Motown great Smokey Robinson, and his grandmother could play any song on the piano by ear. Though he was raised in a tough neighborhood in Baltimore, his talent shielded him from the streets. As a youngin', the local hustlers would pay him to sing love songs to their girlfriends. So naturally, Tamir pursued a path in music. But he had another ambition: becoming a businessman. As a high school freshman, he showed up to school in suits or a trench coat, and carrying a briefcase, as if channeling the spirits of industry giants like Gerald Busby or Berry Gordy. Tamir wasn't trying to be in a singing group, initially trying to do his solo thing. But when he met Mark Sisqó Andrews and James Woody Green through his best friend Brevette, he thought it would be a good idea for them to join the duo who were already singing together. By then, Tamir had adopted the nickname Nokio, short for Nasty on Key and Octave, with his full stage name being Nokio the Entity. Together with another classmate, Chris Thomas, the guys formed a group called 14 Karat Harmony. Since all of them grew up in the church, they began as a gospel group, performing in churches and talent shows before moving into secular music. However, there was one problem: Woody.
God has been so good to me. He's been good to me.
Raised in a strict Baptist family, Woody's mother forbid him from singing anything other than gospel music. Once she discovered that the guys had shifted to R&B, she pulled 15-year-old Woody out of the group. But he still snuck in practices with the guys at school, though he missed any public performances. Ironically, it was without Woody that the group caught the attention of manager Kevin Peck during a performance at Morgan State University. Peck gave each member a ride home after the show, stopping to talk to their parents at every house. And the group eventually agreed to let him manage them. With Peck's management, the group tied for first place at the Apollo Theater's Amateur Night in New York.
I've been singing since I can remember. It's like my mother sings, my father sings, my siblings, grandmother, singing in church. It's like singing is like an outlet.
Larry Anthony, also known as Jazz, really wanted to be in the group. Every day, Jazz would approach Nokio at his locker asking to join. Nokio declined until after Jazz performed Whitney Houston's The Greatest Love of All at a school assembly. After hearing him, Nokio knew they needed his voice in the group. After Jazz joined, Brevette and Chris eventually left, leaving the members to reevaluate their direction. During this period, the group had pivoted back to their gospel roots, which prompted Woody's return, a move that his mother wholeheartedly approved. Woody would later joke that she told him, "You tricked me." But with Woody back in the fold, the group moved forward as a quartet. One of the group's early gigs was singing at the Fudgery, a local fudge shop where they'd harmonize while making orders. Sisqó later told Baltimore Magazine, part of the job was to take popular songs and throw the word fudge in there. So instead of "Isn't she lovely," we'd sing "Isn't fudge lovely." No one gets discovered at the Fudgery, but it was good practice.
We believe that we entertain. It's like, you get your singing groups and your pop groups and your bands or what have you. Our main goal is to keep the crowd entertained.
Sisqó always knew he wanted to be a star. Born Mark Andrews, he got his nickname because his childhood friends thought his light curly hair made him look Latino. As a kid, Sisqó entered several Michael Jackson dance contests, winning most of them. His love for performing began when he saw Michael moonwalk on Motown 25 in 1983, saying, "At that moment I knew what I wanted to do." He took inspiration from Jackson, but also from KC from Jodeci.
Ooh yeah. Ooh yeah.
Sisqó studied KC's stage presence and vocal style, blending it with his own flair.
It's not like anything you made before. If you make it wrong, you'll know it.
Before Destiny's Child became household names, they were Girls' Time. Before they were SWV, they went by TLC. And before the guys found their signature sound, they went by several names, including 14K Harmony, Legacy, and Storm. As Storm, they were featured on local radio for a couple of years, but nothing ever popped off. Under the name Legacy, they secured a deal with University Music Group. Sisqó later called it a teeny-weeny deal in a 1999 Vibe interview, but it gave them exposure in the HBCU circuit and meetings with industry heavyweights. Their talent was undeniable. When they flew to Los Angeles to audition for Interscope, they listened to Tupac's then unreleased single How Do You Want It Once and were able to sing it back in perfect harmony. Sisqó later said, "Our ears had become so keen, we decided we were either going to get signed or go to school. We'd been at this since the 9th grade and it was going on 4 years." Their breakthrough came when University Music Group set up an audition with Hiram Hicks, president of Island Black Music, a subdivision of Island Records. The group piled into a car and drove to New York, not knowing this would mark the start of their next chapter. Hicks was recording the soundtrack for the movie Eddie and had a song titled Tell Me in the works when they came to the studio. When the four sang the track, Hicks stopped them halfway and said, "You guys gotta sign this paper." And just like that, the guys were signed.
How did you guys come up with the name Dru Hill?
Alright, we're from Baltimore, and it's a park in Baltimore called Dru Hill Park.
Yeah.
So, we wanted to represent where we were from, so we decided to call it Dru Hill.
The record company wanted the group to change their name. Legacy just wasn't a good fit. And the guys eventually settled on the name Dru Hill, paying tribute to Baltimore's Druid Hill Park. In August 1996, their debut single Tell Me hit the airwaves, and Dru Hill was officially on the map. The song peaked at number 5 on the R&B charts and number 18 on the pop charts. In the music video, the group danced in front of a Technicolor stage, jumping in perfect harmony. Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Beyoncé. There's always that one member of the group who's the bona fide star. Not to say the others don't have the talent, but there's usually an aura, a certain wow factor that makes the public key into one artist. Yeah, you can try to explain it away. Say that there's someone in the background pulling strings to push them into the forefront, but you can't manipulate charisma. You can't manufacture an it factor, and Sisqó had it. It didn't hurt that his hair had been dyed blonde as well, standing out from the other members' black cuts. The label wanted him to change his hair back black, but he refused.
Sleeping in my bed, messing with my head. Somebody's taking my place.
The group followed up Tell Me with the ballad In My Bed. The song had been passed around the industry. Sisqó claimed he heard versions with 112 and even Usher, but the guys of Dru Hill reluctantly sang it. He also claimed that he didn't like the subject matter of the song, stating he didn't want to sound like a loser singing about someone cheating on him. But the song was a hit and reached number 1 on the R&B charts. Sisqó helped arrange the So So Def remix for the single but never got a credit for it.
Can you give me your name?
Pinocchio, the entity,
And how old are you?
17.
Alright.
I'm Jazz, and I'm 18. I'm Sisqó, the golden child, I'm 17. I'm Woody Rock, and I just turned 19.
Alright. Well, before we get...
In November 1996, the group released their debut album. The album peaked at number 23 on the US Billboard 200 and reached the 5th spot on the R&B albums charts. By June of 1997, the album was certified platinum. AllMusic described the album as an impressive debut and a razor-sharp clue of the great things to come. Also in that year, the guys were able to secure their signature branding. The Rolling Stones had the tongue, Prince owned purple, Michael had the glove, and Dru Hill, well, they'd have the dragon. During one of their first photo shoots at a studio in Chinatown, they saw a dragon painted on the wall, and they insisted they keep it in their pictures, making it their own. While Sisqó was the clear lead singer, Jazz took the reins on the group's third single, Never Make a Promise, which also shot to number 1 on the R&B charts.
I've been through a lot in my life. I go through stuff every day. And when I write songs, I write about stuff that people go through. So it's kind of like if one person could say, I listened to that song and I'm not the only person that's going through that. Now I know I'm not the only person that has these problems.
Each guy is writing credits on the album, with Woody and Jazz having 4 apiece. Pinocchio, inspired by Jodeci's Devante Swing, produced 5 tracks on their album, which was making serious waves in the industry. In a 1999 article, Pinocchio said, "I met Devante not long ago. I was amazed." Sisqó met KC as well, stating, "It was like meeting Michael Jackson to me. My muscles locked up, my mouth went dry. He told me, 'You sound like me the way that I sound like Bobby Womack. It's obvious you studied me like I studied him.'" By 1997, Dru Hill was on top of the world. They had a platinum album, chart-topping records, but they had little money to show for it. Woody claimed that all the money they made went back into the group. but Hiram Hicks claimed that their expectations were bigger than their album sales. A few years before, the group signed to University Records for 12% of the sales for each album sold, but the group was paying about half of that to their management, production team, stylists, and whoever else in their entourage. And when they signed their deal with Island Black Records, they got an even smaller piece of the pie. In spring of that year, at their platinum record party, everything came to a head. Keith Ingram, a member of Kevin Peck's management team, alleged he was assaulted by Hicks at the party. The lawsuit stated Hicks and his brother Joshua, described in the lawsuit as an armed guard, assaulted Ingram and his associate, kicking and beating them with a pool stick in front of the quartet. The argument allegedly started over someone feeling disrespected with the money, or lack thereof, the group was making at the root of it. From Hicks' point of view, his deal was with University Music Group, and they were in charge of paying the guys. From everyone else's point of view, Hicks and his label Island Black Music were the predatory party. Dru Hill and University Records would go on to sue Island's parent company, Polygram, for a whopping $55 million, claiming there was an invidious terrorist campaign of violent and coercive acts orchestrated against the group by the label. By November, the group would eventually settle the lawsuit for an undisclosed amount. They were also supposedly given a chance for each member of the group to do a solo album.
I'm posse member Maya Harrison, and that's the word on the street.
In 1996, 17-year-old Maya had just signed to Interscope Records by way of Haq Islam, the same man who signed Dru Hill to their deal. She was being heralded as an artist who could compete with the likes of Brandy and Monica, and Islam was able to set her up to work with top-tier collaborators for her debut album. One of those collaborators was Dru Hill. Her debut single, It's All About Me, was co-written by Sisqó and recorded as a duet with the two. Her second single, Moving On, was also co-written by Sisqó. In November of 1997, while in between albums and on the heels of settling with their label, the quartet also released We're Not Making Love No More for the soundtrack to the movie Soul Food, both written and produced by Babyface. The single peaked at number 2 on the R&B charts and number 13 on the pop charts. They were also featured on Foxy Brown's Big Bad Mama for the How to Be a Player soundtrack. Inspired by the 1973 film Enter the Dragon, Dru Hill released their sophomore album Enter the Dru in 1998. The album was recorded over a 3-week span in Los Angeles during the early months of the year, and their first single, How Deep Is Your Love, would be the group's biggest yet.
Well, look, I know you got a man. I know you're dealing with this guy over here, but you're dealing with me, so how deep is your love for me? We're not talking about him right now. We're talking about me.
The song reached number 3 on the pop charts and was their third number 1 on the R&B charts, where it stayed for 3 weeks. Their follow-up single, These Are the Times, reached number 5 on the R&B charts.
All right, back to you, Sisqó.
Remember that star power thing? By 1998, it wasn't just Dru Hill fans who were enamored with Sisqó. By then, the whole industry was buzzing about him. He was featuring on songs by himself, leading most of their hits, and the camera was always on him during performances and videos. And while Nokia was more focused on production and the business, the other members, Woody and Jazz, started to feel like they were being seen as merely background singers. Jazz also felt like since he was a bigger guy, he would be pushed in the back of photos due to his size. Woody had really been struggling with his place in the group at that time. His mother used to call R&B the devil's music, and while on tour he said he never felt love from the fans. He got tired of the others having their moment while he never had the crowd reaction he wanted. One night while praying, he heard a voice tell him, "You will never get what you want until you're doing it for me." And at that moment he knew he had to leave the group.
Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to entertain and perform. Lord, please bless this performance as you have all the other ones and let everybody enjoy it. Let's do a great job. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
During the video shoot for the Wild Wild West single for the soundtrack of the movie of the same name, Woody left the group in the middle of filming. Seeing as how Sisqó got most of the scenes in the video and the other guys were just waiting around to film, Woody was fed up with feeling mistreated and left the group in the middle of the shoot, leaving the other 3 to finish the video without him. This incident added to an already traumatizing experience during a show in Paris. Woody recalled that shortly after landing in the city, they were warned they might have to fight that night. A local gang connected with the concert promoters often picked fights with artists to rob them, but most of the artists were rappers, so the group brushed it off. The group was unaware the gang was present at their venue. After their security refused a fan's photo request, a fight erupted, and within seconds, one of the men pulled a firearm. Dru Hill security quickly rushed them into their van, but the shooter chased them, firing at the van's window. Thankfully, the bullets missed as they ducked inside. Following the attack, the United States Embassy provided heavy security at their hotel. This deeply unsettled Woody, who was already questioning his place in the group. Once they got back to America, one of their first appearances was to the Wild Wild West video, And while Sisqó was dancing and singing all in the video, Woody had nothing to do and he decided he was done. It didn't help that one of the girls he was dating was on the set, which had to be a little embarrassing.
I was just in my room at the hotel and I was thinking, I was like, man, I'm writing songs that people like, I'm doing this, I'm performing, like busting my tail every night, but I don't feel good. And I just asked the Lord, and just as plain as we're sitting here talking right now, he told me pretty much, you're never going to shine unless you're doing it for me. So you do what I want you to do, basically. And when I heard that, I said, well, why waste any more time? Me going there and let them know that I want to do gospel.
The group continued on in his absence. They released You Are Everything in 1999 without Woody in the video. This would be their lowest charting single from the album, reaching number 27 on the R&B charts. The group would start making public appearances and doing shows as a trio, but it came with lukewarm reception. That same year, Island Records would merge with Def Jam to become the Island Def Jam Music Group, making Enter the Dru their last record on the label, and the group the newest members of Def Jam's Def Soul subsidiary. Let's talk about Def Soul real quick. On the heels of Montel Jordan's smash single This Is How We Do It, Russell Simmons and Kevin Liles founded Def Soul as the R&B subsidiary to the Def Jam recording label. In 1999, along with Island black artist Kelly Price, Dru Hill was joining a roster of artists that were starting to shake up the music industry. But the guys were at a crossroads. Down a member and momentum was dwindling from their album.
And if it wasn't for Jazz, Nokio, and Woody, I wouldn't be the artist I am today. So it's kind of like a new message, to the rest of the world that, hey, there is more than one member of Dru Hill.
If you could predict which member of Dru Hill would go solo in the 90s, it would be Sisqó. And in November 1999, he did just that. Unleash the Dragon, his debut album, was released to moderate success. Until
white thongs, black thongs, lace thongs, string thongs, you got wrong thongs.
Thong Song was an instant hit, reaching number 3 on the charts. His follow-up single Incomplete also reached number 1 on the pop charts, something that Dru Hill was never able to accomplish. He also had a new look, trading in his blonde hair for platinum, just like his record, and the album would move on to sell over 5 million copies.
Chaney Johnson, my manager Kenneth Creer, and The Firm. And also that thong. Thank you.
Sisqó was on fire. He even had his own doll. But he wasn't the only one doing his thing. Nokio focused on producing for other artists like DMX and Foxy Brown. Him and Sisqó signed a girl group named Lover under their joint label Dragon Records, and their single How It's Gonna Be was featured on the Rush Hour 2 soundtrack in 2001. In 2001, Jazz was headed towards solo territory as well. But due to issues with Def Jam's head Lyor Cohen, it never came to fruition and he was dropped as a solo artist. He would go on to say about that period. After the glitz and glamour, all I did was watch television and eat. There was no real money coming in, so I would drive around the city in a cab just to make $70 or $80. I had gone from spending thousands a day to hacking.
Dru Hill, Woody Rock Gospel, all-American, super pioneer about the break.
While everyone else was still entrenched in R&B, Woody was trying to do gospel. Kevin Liles allegedly told him that although he was leaving the group, Def Jam wanted to keep him on the label to do his solo album. But Def Jam didn't do gospel and kept trying to get him to cut deals, like making a cameo in the Thong Song video to keep the label satisfied in hopes that a solo gospel album would soon come. Woody eventually left Def Jam and released his gospel album Soul Music under Gospel-Centric Records, who had artists like Kirk Franklin and Dorinda Clark Cole on their label. The album would end up having lackluster sales due to low promotion.
For whatever reason, the album was not promoted. I know that the day that it was released, I asked, even in my own city, like, why are there no posters out here letting people know that my project is out? And I was told that the van of the person who puts the posters up had caught a flat tire, and that's why nobody put any pictures up. Like, that sounds crazy to me.
Sisqó was aiming for dominance in the R&B game, but when he released his sophomore album Return of Dragon in 2001, although it received positive reviews from critics, it was a commercial disappointment and didn't have any hits like his previous album. Around that time, Sisqó offended one of the top R&B artists of the era. You might have heard of him.
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly.
Sisqó had said he was running R&B. Thong Song was a smash. Incomplete went number 1. Nobody was touching him before Return of Dragon. But R. Kelly felt offended by the sentiment. On his unfinished business collab album with Jay-Z, he called out Sisqó by rhyming 20s on the drop. Blue and Yellow rocks. Kiki yellin' stop. Sisqó's album flopped.
F was ones said I wouldn't mention Sisqó. He's a bomb.
R. Kelly addressed the diss by saying, I just didn't appreciate how my man got on TV and said he was shutting it down when it came to R&B. I ain't gonna lie, it triggered me a little bit where I had to speak up on that. Sisqó was really feeling himself during the promo run for Return of Dragon. He even came at Usher, saying to New York Daily News, "I'm the man. Usher can't touch me, he ain't even close." But when Sisqó's album was a disappointment commercially, the label decided to give Dru Hill another round. One of the conditions of Woody's contract when he left the group in 1999 was that he would return to Dru Hill to record one more album. Plus, audiences were not interested in Dru Hill as a trio, with Sisqó saying that audiences started dwindling down when it was just him, Nokio and Jazz. Nokio and Sisqó were concerned that Jazz wouldn't return to the group due to his issues with the label, so they invited new member Rufus Scola Waller along with Woody. In November 2002, Dru World Order was out. The majority of the album was produced by Nokio, and their lead single I Should Be peaked at number 6 on the R&B charts.
They good people, man. Down to earth. From what I've seen, none of them, they don't trip when it comes to this quote-unquote, this stardom stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's just what we love to do, music. You know what I mean? And I love the guys, man.
The album sold 122,000 copies its first week and went on to be certified gold, a far cry from their previous platinum projects. The group started to feel increasingly frustrated with their situation at the label, feeling as if their album had been put on the back burner because their label was too occupied promoting 112. On March 20th, 2003, the day the video for their single I Love You dropped on BET, Kevin Peck sued the guys for $30 million for breach of contract. Dru Hill had parted ways from his management team between their second and third album, and Peck claimed that they owed him compensation dating back to 1997. The suit also claimed that, as long as the group had a recording contract, Peck was entitled to a piece of their income. It was eventually settled out of court. That same year, Sisqó was arrested for allegedly firing shots at his neighbor's brother's car. He was released the next day on $175,000 bond. Sisqó had allegedly been receiving threats during that time and was defending himself, but he was eventually charged with assault, reckless endangerment, and resisting arrest. The assault charges would be dropped, but he received unsupervised probation for resisting arrest and reckless endangerment. Around this time, Nokio welcomed a son with legendary radio DJ Angie Martinez. They tried to keep their relationship under wraps in the media, and to this day have barely spoken on it publicly. By 2004, mounting tension with L.A. Reid, plus the group failing to record any new music after Dru World Order, caused them to be dropped from Def Soul. Sisqó was dropped as a solo artist as well. His solo career had started to fizzle out after his sophomore album. He had other ventures like being featured in movies like Snow Dogs with Cuba Gooding Jr. and his own dance reality show on MTV. But by 2004, his solo music career had stalled. Sisqó says this was because he refused to play the game. Instead of working with big names that the label wanted him to, he worked with his family and people from his city. And the label started to think he was hard to work with because of this, shutting down future opportunities.
So you leaving the group right now on the radio?
I mean, Spurs can't do steps on stage, bro.
Oh, hell no, man.
Things were quiet for the guys until 2008, when the group made waves when Woody would quote-unquote quit live on radio. Woody would reveal years later that this was all a hoax, but it was funny nonetheless. Even though the radio station drama was fake, Woody would eventually really leave the group, and the group would hold a contest in Baltimore to look for his replacement. Their new member Teo would be introduced on their fourth album Indrupendence Day, and when asked where Scola went, Nokio replied, "5 people mess up the money." Indrupendence Day was released in 2010 to moderate success. That same year, the group was featured on Keith Sweat's Platinum House, a show on Centric about the group's comeback and recording of the album. In the years since their debut, the group often struggled with partying and drug use. Nokio confessed that he would partake in ecstasy and said we had done everything in excess. Jazz also struggled with addiction and had a stint in rehab. Also around that time, Sisqó was ordered to pay child support when Jamila Farid came public with her allegations. The then 25-year-old claimed she was 14 when she met and slept with him when he was in Zurich touring with his group. The woman, who claimed she met him in a nightclub, said she never mentioned her age and he never asked. After failed attempts to confront him and Sisqó consistently denying to take a paternity test, the Swiss courts ordered him to pay child support. Also around 2014, a bizarre fight between Kyle from Jagged Edge and Sisqó surfaced online backstage at a concert. At the time of this video, no one has come out and said if this time it was a hoax or not.
Do you remember what the conversation was that led to the fight?
Nope.
Sisqó released a solo album in 2015, which unfortunately didn't chart. And in the years that followed, Jazz and Teo had left the group to focus on their solo projects. Jazz also focused on his health during that time, as his weight was hindering him from performing. This left Nokio and Sisqó as a twosome. They enlisted the members of Playa, Smoke and Digital Black to work with them on their new album, The Second Coming. In February 2020, they released their first single, What You Need. But later that month, Nokio would announce he was leaving the group, indicating that he wanted to spend more time with his family as well as citing conflict with their manager Kevin Peck, who had been invited back into the fold after his lawsuit was settled with the group. Sisqó, Smoke, and Digital Black would make several appearances together in the meantime. There's been a revolving door of lineup changes through the years, but Dru Hill is still touring. They're currently doing shows with members Scola, Digital Black, Smoke, Sisqó, Jazz, and Nokio back from his short-lived departure. The men are still going strong, selling out shows internationally as well as here in the States. And no matter the lineup changes, the fans still love that Dru Hill sound. Nokio, Woody, Jazz, and Sisqó, the original quartet, created timeless music that resonated deeply with fans of 90s R&B, forever etching their names in the history of the genre. Through lineup changes, industry battles, and personal transformations, they maintained their unique blend of soulful harmonies and raw emotion. Nokio's visionary production, Woody's gospel-infused vocals, Jazz's soulful depth, and Sisqó's electrifying stage presence came together to create a sound that was both fresh and deeply rooted in traditional R&B. Even as group dynamics shifted over the years, the core essence of Dru Hill remains. And their story is far from finished. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content.